November is National Veterans and Military Families Month. And this week, we are also marking Veterans Day, the annual marking of the patriotism and, of course, the sacrifice of those who have served our country. And this week on In Focus, we are highlighting some of the issues that impact those very communities we honor every November 11th. So joining me this week to talk about the recognition that America's veterans deserve and how to translate that recognition into resources and that ongoing support. We have Congressman Randy Fine, who represents parts of Lake Volusia and Flagler counties in Congress. Congressman, welcome back to In Focus. And we also have Joe Marino, a former U.S. Army officer, now serving as Executive Director of Veterans Florida. Joe, thank you truly, sincerely for your service, and gentlemen, welcome to In Focus. And Congressman, if I may start with you, from your seat in Congress, how do you think we're doing when it comes to taking care of our veterans?
Well, thanks for having me, Allison. It's great to be back. Look, we owe our veterans a debt that we can never fully repay. We live in a dangerous world. Frankly, America's always been under danger. We were created in a war. And so we owe our veterans a debt that we can never repay. I think we have more work to do, not only taking care of their physical needs, but their emotional needs as well. And as we see rises in PTSD, veterans' disability issues, my office works every day to try to make sure veterans get what they need. And I always tell people, if you're in my district and you're having a problem, call my office. But whether it's health care, whether it's mental health care, whether it's their benefits, these people went and risked their lives to allow us to be free in this country. And we've done a lot, but there's always more that we have to do.
And so you're talking about support there, Congressman. So Joe, you served for 8 years on active duty and then in the reserves. Since you served, what kind of support and assistance have you gotten from our country? And how does that compare perhaps to what you expected you would receive when you enlisted?
Well, thank you for having me on this afternoon and for including Veterans Florida in this great discussion. I always get excited to talk about what Florida does for veterans because it's come a long way, both at the state level and the national level. When I got out of the military in the late 90s, there were none of the things that we can talk about today, from skill bridge to entrepreneur training, and a lot of the resources that Congressman Fine works up at the DC level. So it's really it's come a long way, and it's exciting to be in Florida because Florida leads the way when it comes to veteran support on the healthcare issues, on the benefits and resources, and also on the workforce and opportunity side of things. It's really a continuum of available resources through Veterans Florida, Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, who connects veterans to their federal benefits as well as state benefits. So really, over the decades that I've been a veteran, it's really come a long way, and it's great to see the level of support, both at the public level, but also at the legislative level over the years.
Joe, you really snapped into this role quickly after your service. So you snapped into this new kind of service. Why?
Well, it almost happened by accident. When I got out of the military, I was out there, officer, looking for a career, and in the late 90s, no one, or there were a few people who knew how to translate a military officer's resume into civilian speak and into a civilian career. So I actually wound up working for a company that was doing just that, and so I was helping other officers that were getting out and enlisted that were getting out with finding careers on the other side, so to speak. And so then moved up to Tallahassee, got involved. I was a staffer on the Military Veteran Affairs Committee in the early 2000s. And since then, I've worked at Florida Department of Veterans Affairs and wound up at Veterans Florida in 2015, 16, and we've been able to grow our offerings and our services to the veterans so that they don't have to go what I went through of not knowing what's out there, what my skills translate into. It's been a long journey, and I want to help make sure that that other veterans and their spouses and their family members don't have to have a hard transition like some of us may have had in the past, because there are really so many resources to help ease that transition out of the military and into a new life. And a new community.
Incredibly admirable, Joe. And in Congressman, let's kind of shift into some of the wait times with VA care. This is an issue that we've reported on nationwide for years now, crossing multiple Congresses, multiple administrations, and each party. But what conversations are you having in Congress, or what more can, we do to really right this ship?
Sure. Well, look, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think we've had American soldiers in harm's way for a very long time. So if you think about after 9/11, for pretty much 20 years, we had American servicemen in some kind of combat situation. That may be the longest, sustained period of time in our history. And from that come a lot of needs. And I don't know that the VA was built to handle that. So I think there are two ways we do that. One is trying to help people. And a big part of the constituent service that my office does, if we've got a veteran who can't get in to get seen, he calls our office and we use our resources to make sure they get in. But I think a second way to solve that problem is to make sure that if the VA isn't the right option for you, that private service can work. Because we obviously have a whole healthcare system. I was not a veteran. If I have a problem, then I don't go to a VA hospital. I go to the regular hospital. Now, I think the VA is great because they are prepared to deal with certain kinds of issues that would only affect a soldier or a sailor or an airman, those kinds of issues that I would never have to face. And that kind of specialized treatment, I think, is incredibly important. But I think we should not let a focus on one particular delivery service limit how the folks get the care that they need. If you served our country, we ought to be taking care of you. And that's the kind of thing that me and my colleagues work on every day.
So then, Joe, in your efforts, how do you see these different forces working together between those private organizations and the federal government, as well as state and local assistance?
Sure. From our perspective at Veterans Florida, we sort of walk in both worlds to a degree. While we are a nonprofit, we are a state-created nonprofit, and administratively, we're under the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. Yet we have to go out and make these private partnerships with employers, entrepreneur trainers, other resources around the state as well. So while as the congressman said, there are certain unique needs. And there are also certain unique resources that are available for veterans, and so we have our hands in several different areas, trying to bring the veterans and the resource providers, whether they're public or private, to the table to solve a particular individual's problems, or find that right opportunity for them to succeed in the great state of Florida.
So, Joe, Florida has both a governor and lieutenant governor who have served in the military. Curious, what kind of a difference does that make in terms of getting the state to buy into initiatives that really help our veterans where they need it?
It plays a big part to a degree. When we were created, Governor Scott was in office, also a veteran. So as a veteran, I can say it's nice to have veterans in state leadership like that. But we've had friends from all over, business, nonprofits, both sides of the aisle. It doesn't matter. Veterans issues are one of those issues that tends to bring people together to solve common problem. And so it's a great arena to be in because it's a very friendly arena. Most folks want to get to the top of that hill, and the discussions are typically how do we do that, not not other sorts of issues that you may run across
Yeah.
in politics, but when it comes to veterans issues, everyone wants to get to the top of that hill together, to provide those resources and solutions for our veterans.
So then, speaking of these solutions, Joe, this has me thinking about the state of Florida. It has this hiring initiative for veterans and military spouses. It's called Paychecks for Patriots. If you would tell me more about that effort, where are we?
Yeah, this is a great effort that started several years ago and has just continued to grow. It's both a state level and local initiative. The state directs that Paychecks for Patriots be conducted across the state, and then our friends over at CareerSource, under the Florida Department of Commerce, at the local workforce board level, these Paychecks for Patriots job fairs are being held during kind of the first half of November, you can say, at various locations, all the way from Pensacola down to Miami and the other side of Florida as well. And it's a great opportunity for veterans across the state because it's local, but it's also a full effort to bring employers and opportunities during a very focused month on veterans. So it's a great opportunity if you are in a local area and interested in going to one of these job fairs. If you go to the CareerSource Florida website, there is a list of all of the available Paychecks for Patriots across the state in the next few weeks.
Hey, Allison, you mind if I talk about a federal
Of course,
program that we're
Congressman.
working on that would
Jump on
help?
in.
So many people know in federal contracting, there are usually something called a set aside, where you say that a certain percentage of a contract should go to a woman-owned business or a minority-owned business. And without saying whether these are good ideas or not, I said those set asides are because of who someone is, not because of what they've done. And so I'm working on legislation to create the exact same kind of set aside for our veterans, particularly as it relates to contracts with the military, because who better is going to understand the needs that the Pentagon may have or what our Veterans Administration may have than those who actually are veterans and those who've actually served. And so we're working very hard to try to say, look, if we're going to have set asides at all in federal contracting, we probably ought to be looking to set something aside to those people who've done so much. And as someone who was not a veteran, I'm very appreciative to those who were, but I feel like the obligation is even greater for people like me to take care of people who did something that I did not. And so while I think it's great when our veterans are looking out for each other, I think it's even more important that those who did not make those sacrifices be appreciative of it and show that in the work that we do.
And Congressman, yeah, if you could also clarify for us, the role of Congress in this support, in these initiatives to help veterans. Is it appropriating money and letting organizations do their work, or is there more for elected officials, like yourself, to do? How hands-on is that? Boots on the ground, if you will.
Well, it's very involved because keep in mind, when we're generally talking about veterans, we're talking about veterans of the armed forces. They were effectively employees of the federal government. And so it is the federal government's responsibility. So we do a number of things. We certainly fund a lot of things, pass a lot of money down to the states and other organizations, but we also do a lot directly. We have the Department of Veterans Affairs, a whole cabinet agency whose job it is to be looking out for the needs of veterans. We have the VA, where people can go to get their health care. So I think that it is the job of the federal government to look after us. And we're very lucky. Not every state does what Florida does. In Fact of the matter is, if America was run like Florida, we wouldn't have any problems. And so we're lucky that not only are we doing these efforts at the federal level, but my old colleagues in the legislature where I came from not too long ago are saying this is a priority for the state of Florida as well. That's a choice that the state of Florida has made, and it's the right choice. And so we're very lucky that we have organizations like Veterans Florida going out and doing these things. Not all states do the same.
And Joe, then one more question in this block here. You know, we spent a lot of time in the last segment talking about outreach to today's veterans. Curious to know, what about tomorrow's veterans? You know, what kind of help will be available to them? You know, that's either there now or that we're just talking about, you know, conceptualizing or conceiving.
Great question, and we think about that every day. And the Congressman's right. What Florida has through Veterans Florida is very unique. Other states do not have an organization like us. They may have bits and pieces of what we do, but they don't have it all housed under one entity like we do, with a singular focus on opportunity and making those connections. As far as the future, you know, we have been Florida's been leading the way on, excuse me, the implementing a statewide initiative of awareness on the Department of War's Skill Bridge program. This is a program that allows service members during their final few months in uniform to actually go work at a public or private employer as an unpaid intern, because they're still getting paid by Department of War, to go and get some industry experience under their belt before they even take off the uniform. Something like this was unheard of 20 years ago, but this is a program that started at the federal level back in the mid 2010s. And Governor DeSantis worked with us to sign legislation that would make this a statewide initiative. So at Veterans Florida, we're continuing to roll this program out. This was signed in 2021. So we're still out there getting the word out to employers about this opportunity and educating service members and even base commanders, because they're part of the equation. They have to get approval from their base commander to go do this program. Mm-hmm. So it's an ongoing education and awareness process. And I think, you know, looking at the future, what is AI going to do to veterans' resumes? So we're thinking about what's the future going to be like there? It's already hard for a veteran resume to get seen by the right person at a particular employer. AI just adds another layer, because AI isn't necessarily trained on a veteran resume. Again, as Congressman said earlier, it's a very unique set of skills, and those don't show up. And if the AI is not properly trained, so how do we take new programs? How do we think about the future and make sure that veterans, one, don't get left behind, but are also able to keep pace with their peers? Those are things that we think about every day.
One more question for each of you, gentlemen. You know, Congressman Fine, you know, first with you. Tuesday, of course, is Veterans Day. Just deep dive for you. What does it mean to you? You know, and how can we use this day not just to show our thanks, but to keep the supportive efforts going every other day of the year?
Well, I like to think about on Veterans Day not only the gratitude for those who served, but why they did what they did, whether it was at Lexington and Concord or in Fallujah. Our veterans have spent their lives making sure that America could be a great experiment unlike any other country in the world, a place where we take many of these freedoms for granted, a place where you can grow up to be anything you want, where you can basically say anything that you want, you can get together with who you want, that you have freedoms unlike anywhere else in the world. And in a time in which we see those freedoms being restricted in so many places, I'm so grateful to those veterans who do that. So I think about not only how grateful I am to our veterans, but what it is that they sacrificed for, and it makes me very appreciative.
Indeed, indeed. Well said, Congressman. And Joe, you know, to you, how will you be spending Veterans Day? You know, what is the main message that you hope viewers today are going to take with them?
Family time, appreciation for my brothers and sisters in arms who are out like me, and those who are going to be out like us, because those in uniform will be a veteran someday. And we just appreciate, you know, the sentiments of the congressman and other Americans who really appreciate why we're here, why we did what we did, and the establishment of our country involved a lot of recognition of the veterans at the time. So that tradition has carried forward for 250 years. And it's a great tradition. Veterans Day itself, obviously, is not as old as the country, but the idea of honoring those who put on the uniform, I separate myself from that to a degree because I'm out here helping veterans, and I just want them to have a great Veterans Day. Hope they can make it out to a parade. Hope they can get out to a Paychecks for Patriots. Hope they can just spend a day to wind down and appreciate what they did, because I hope the country does. And I feel like the country does nowadays.
Such powerful perspective from each of you. Joe, Congressman, thank you. Welcome back anytime.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. To keep up with important issues impacting our communities and hear more conversations with the people who are shaping the future, subscribe to our channel. You can also download our app or find Spectrum News on your TV for balanced, in-depth political coverage and more.